Meghan Markle's obnoxious hypocrisy has just been exposed as she tells Prince Harry, finally, get a job. I'm embarrassed about this. Look. Meghan Markle hiked in the podiatrist-approved sneakers shoppers say feel comfortable even after 20,000 steps. Brittany from the Royal News Network joins me now. And look, Brittany, this is obnoxious. Of course, what she is doing was never is obnoxious. I mean, the product is tat. It arrives without wicks, for example. It stinks like soap. And she's selling it for an astronomical price that she previously admitted was obnoxious. But I guess for me, Brittany, the deeper story here is that it is because she's desperate, because there is a need to bring in money. I mean, imagine if you told 2020 Meghan Markle, oh, you're going to be having to punt out articles via People magazine about a pair of sneakers that you wore once on a walk in Australia. But all of this is a desperation that comes from the need to make money, which is something she is not doing.
Yes, Dan, 100%. Meghan and Harry, I think, are starting to get really desperate for money because, in my theory, actually Netflix tied a lot of the money that they gave Harry and Meghan into the as ever stock. This is why she's not discounting it, which is why she keeps bundling it, sort of desperate to sell it for as high of retail value as possible, even though at this point, the products just simply aren't moving. And it's because Netflix said, okay, we're going to give you the money that's part of this lump deal, but a good chunk of it is going to go into developing your inventory. Well, Netflix did that. Now Meghan's stuck with the inventory that can't move, which means all their money that they were supposed to get for Netflix, or at least a good chunk of it, is tied up in her terrible products. And she is not good at marketing. She is not good at figuring out what actual consumers want. And so she's constantly stuck in this endless loop of failure. And she has no one to blame here but herself. If she had let a actual professional person run this company, she might be in a better spot. But at this point, I mean, as ever, it looks like it's pretty much dead already.
It is. And that's why, Brittany, we get to the new revelation that Meghan Markle wants Prince Harry to get a job. And what's interesting about this to me is that she could only go for so long, Brittany, with the, I support you doing the philanthropy and you just go and be a little fake royal and I'll be the breadwinner. But the problem is it hasn't worked. And so, of course, she puts the pressure on Harry.
She does. And nothing is working, Dan. Nothing is working on Meghan's end, on Harry's end. I mean, Harry tried to produce the Invictus Games documentary. That was actually their biggest failure of all for Netflix. I mean, there's just so many things that are just failure after failure. And I've said it a lot. Harry needs a real big boy job. He has been just meandering endlessly, doing nothing for quite a bit now. And he honestly is probably in some ways their biggest breadwinner because he's at least somewhat more likable than she is. But he is inept at all of this because she took him out of the one thing that he was actually good at, which was being a royal. He was relatively good at that. He's not good at being producer. He's not good at being an executive. He's not good at being a podcaster. He couldn't even create a podcast talking about hot chocolate. This guy is mostly, I hate to say it, kind of useless. And so she took him out of the one place where he was kind of useful. And now she's stuck with him. He's not a particularly bright fellow. And so he has no clue what to do. She was in Hollywood, had a minimal level of success before jumping into the royal family. So she never had the success either to back up her Hollywood chops. And so they're both a mess. Like there's no way to get anywhere. But yes, they both need to work. They both need real jobs. They have a huge, very expensive mansion to maintain huge bills. And honestly, I don't think the money is rolling in for them anymore. I think basically most of it's all gone. And they're probably, I would guess, sort of barely surviving at this point.
Because there were even questions last week, Brittany. I mean, Better Up did push back on it, but whether Harry was even in his $1 million gig with that HR company, because what has he done for them? And the thing is, what you can guarantee is that there will not be a seven-figure outlay for doing nothing. I mean, he might remain on the website, but he isn't putting the hours in. He's not bringing anything to these corporations.
And he can't, Dan. He just simply doesn't have the chops for it. He does not have the ability to bring anything in. He is essentially can be a spokesperson, and that's about it. I mean, the one benefit Better Up did get from Harry, you could say, is a connection with the Invictus Games. So I'm sure Harry's got some sort of backdoor deal and maybe he's getting a cut of that. I'm not sure. But this whole Better Up thing, I mean, he's basically there to be a figurehead and that's it. Like they don't really want anything from him. He can't really help. I mean, even when he gives a speech, he makes a fool of himself. He attempts to get into global politics. He makes an absolute fool of himself. And the thing is, right now, we've seen with the WHO using Harry, and I think members of Harry's team in Ukraine using Harry, that Harry is a useful idiot for those who need a guy who can say anything for them. And that's what Harry is at this point. He's basically going around and being a useful idiot for a paycheck. And that's, of course, a massive danger to the monarchy because Harry's not principled. He's just looking for the money, and so is Meghan. And so they'll do anything for it. They'll mask it in philanthropy, but really, all they want at the end of the day is a check.
Indeed, indeed. Here is the Rob Shooter reporting, by the way, about exactly what Meghan Markle has delivered to Prince Harry. It is time to contribute more financially, but Harry has no idea how to deal with money. And that is maybe one of the few things that you can forgive this moron for, Brittany, because he grew up not really having to worry about money. Royals don't really worry about money in a day-to-day manner in the same way that we do, because fundamentally their lives are paid for. They don't have to worry about paying the mortgage. They don't have to worry about paying the rent. They don't need to worry about having enough money on the credit card to top up the car with petrol. That is the privilege that comes with being a member of the monarchy, but as a result, they give up their life in return for public good. So Harry knows nothing about money. And Meghan has put him, Brittany, on this sort of emotional roller coaster, which is like one moment she's saying, no, it hasn't worked. The commercial stuff hasn't worked. So don't worry, you go back to the charity stuff. And then that hasn't worked. And so now she's putting the pressure on again. I mean, he doesn't understand money, Brittany. He has never understood money. She should have known that.
She should have, Dan. I mean, this again, you were so right. This whole fiasco is her fault. She is the one who wanted to leave. She is the one who concocted, I think, a whole bunch of things that pull on Harry's heartstrings to get him to agree to leave his family, leave his security net, leave his world, and adopt her own. And if a couple decides that together, then I think, of course, that's okay. But I really think at the end of the day, this was entirely a Meghan manipulation on Harry. And she can't complain now when he did what she wanted him to do. But as it turns out, I mean, the whole reason she was able to get married to him in the first place, in my personal opinion, is that he's a bit dense. He's not the smartest, he's not the sharpest, and he was easily manipulated by her. And that was part of her attraction to him, is that he was not the brightest bulb in the box. And she can't complain now that she did not marry the brightest bulb in the box. And as it turns out, he's not really good for anything in a lot of ways. Yes, he has his profile. Yes, he has a level of charisma. Yes, he has these charities, but he has no concept of the real world. And she didn't teach him. And he didn't really have a desire to know, because I think in his mind too, because this was her idea, I mean, he kind of thought it was his, but because this was her idea, her world, he relied on her heavily for this. And as it turns out, she can't do it either. And so they're both in this spot where they both created this mess together, but Meghan led it. And so Meghan has to deal with the burden of, hey, you wanted this ridiculously over the top lifestyle, and you need to be able to pay for it. And if you can't, that's on you, because you guys could still be living
because
in
Brittany,
Frogmore Cottage.
like, he was happy even in the little the little granny flat at Kensington Palace, which, can I just say, is still one of the most lavish properties and addresses in the United Kingdom. Like, for mere mortals, you'd need millions and millions. But it wasn't particularly posh, and he was happy there. So there's no way that they needed this 16 bedroom mansion in Montecito. No way. And she didn't need it either, but she's greedy. And she's also very arrogant. She thought that they were going to be much more successful than they were. Then, of course, Brittany, you get to what's coming next. And I found this particularly grim, but quite predictable. Now the Daily Mail saying that Meghan is waiting for Lily to turn 5. And that it's going to be the 5th birthday as the big moment to unveil her. And it's also grim, but PR and branding experts now telling the newspaper there has been a noticeable shift in Meghan's approach to featuring her children on public social media over the last year, adding it reinforces the idea that as ever is an extension of her life as a mother and a homemaker. Do you think this is likely?
Before we begin, if you're enjoying our royal coverage, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest royal drama. Now, let's get into it. The criticism surrounding Meghan Markle shows no sign of slowing down. And this time, the conversation is not just about her public image, but about what some commentators see as a bigger question surrounding the Sussexes' future. A fresh controversy involving what critics have called an obnoxious scandal has sparked another wave of online debate, with some observers suggesting the backlash may be revealing deeper frustrations about Meghan's brand and Prince Harry's role within it. The accusation from critics? That Harry needs to become more active. That he needs a clearer purpose. And in the blunt language of social media, get a job. Now, to be clear, much of this discussion is based on commentary, opinion, and public reaction rather than confirmed private conversations. But the debate itself has become impossible to ignore. Since stepping down as senior working royals in 2020, Harry and Meghan have tried to build a new life in California. The goal was independence, freedom, control over their own story, and the chance to create a powerful global brand outside the constraints of royal duty. For a while, it looked like they were on that path. Major media deals, high-profile interviews, documentaries, podcasts, speaking engagements. The Sussexes appeared to be positioning themselves as one of the most influential celebrity couples in the world. But several years later, critics say the picture looks very different. Questions have emerged about cancelled projects, uncertain business ventures, and growing public fatigue with endless royal drama. Now, attention has shifted toward Meghan's lifestyle ambitions and the products tied to her expanding brand. One item in particular has become the focus of ridicule online. A luxury candle that critics say represents everything they dislike about celebrity branding. To supporters, it's simply another lifestyle product. To detractors, it's proof that Meghan is out of touch with ordinary people. And that is where the backlash intensified. Social media users quickly seized on the story. Comment sections filled with criticism. Commentators mocked the product. Others accused Meghan of trying too hard to project exclusivity and luxury. The reaction spread fast. And as the criticism grew, some observers began asking a familiar question. Where does Prince Harry fit into all of this? For years, Harry has been seen as both Meghan's strongest supporter and one of her most valuable public assets. His royal background opened doors. His personal story drew attention. His connection to the monarchy helped keep the couple in the headlines. But critics now argue that attention alone is no longer enough. Some say Harry has struggled to define himself outside royal life. Others believe he remains caught between two worlds, unable to fully return to his royal roots while still searching for a successful role in America. That has led to a growing perception among critics that Harry needs a new direction. And that is how the phrase "get a job" entered the conversation.
I mean, I'm not totally sure, but Meghan will reveal her kids at one point in the optimum moment to get the biggest paycheck. I mean, we always knew this was coming. We always knew this was going to be the outcome. The whole claim of, oh, they're protecting their children's privacy. Honestly, I think Harry and Meghan have revealed more about their children in a lot of ways than the Waleses, and we've seen their children fully numerous times. But Meghan just is always after the paycheck here. And the reality is kids on social media do sell. But there is, of course, a backlash to that growing. People are not as, engaged with mommy vloggers and these sorts of things because they see so much of it as manipulation. That moms, sometimes not all moms who vlog with their children, manipulate their children or manipulate headlines and these sorts of things to get attention because children do bring you a level of attention, and states are passing laws against this. And so Meghan is kind of approaching dangerous waters here. And her children, if she really wants them to be private, be private. They don't need to be on there. And if you can't sell your wares, Meghan Markle, I don't think Lily can either. But she's got to try anything. She's got to try anything. They're not making money. She needs, as ever, to make money for her, because otherwise, they're not really going to get all that they were promised in some ways from Netflix. And those products are probably close, at least some of them, maybe close to expiring within next couple months to a year. And that's got to be a big warning sign for her.
My advice to someone like Paula Abdul would just be like, don't play into this PR game. There's no benefit for you doing that. The benefit is all for Meghan Markle.
I mean, Dan, to be honest, I'm not even sure if it's to the benefit of Meghan Markle either. It's just a song. She chose a particular song for a particular Instagram post. And while it's lovely, it's like nothing to get super excited about. But People Magazine and publications like it, I think, are sort of desperate to get sort of any sort of headline. Like they pull the most ridiculous things out at this point because they're a dying industry. And so they got to make a mountain out of a molehill. And that's what I feel like this situation is here. And I'm sure for Paula, there was a level of flattery to it, but I'm sure a lot of famous people have used her song before. And she mentioned other things too, as well. So it's just one of those things where things have to be blown out of proportion because it's Meghan and she just needs that positive attention. She needs that buzz. But Meghan, of course, has always oversaturated the media landscape to such an extent that it actually turns people off. Best to just let things lie and just move on. But the needless and excessive pursuit of positive headlines always, I think, results in negative ones and negative feelings overall towards her.
Indeed, Brittany, also breaking over the weekend, this allegation of ex-Prince Andrew at Ascot was actually against a waitress, which does make the story, Brittany, I have to be honest, feel a little darker than what we were aware of last week. Of course it's dark, of course it's worrying, but for a waitress to prove that something like this went on in 2002 is going to be difficult unless complaints were made at the time, or unless there were witnesses, or I would argue unless there were multiple people who were impacted.
I do have to agree with you, Dan, there. It's so hard to prove an allegation that's so old at this point, especially if there is one that there's just really not a lot of corroboration for. And you got to think as well, unfortunately, when you put out a big net like this for stories, you're going to get some that are true. Not saying that this one is that, but some that are true, some that are false, and some that are just kind of difficult to prove. But it may go into a series of sort of broader situations regarding Andrew as people continue to look at his behavior. This all comes back to his behavior, his arrogance, his entitlement, and these sorts of things, resulting in boorish behavior on multiple levels. Of course, we don't really know the details of what's being alleged here, so it's hard to kind of draw a strong conclusion. But I think Andrew, for so long, acted with impunity and was allowed to sort of do what he wanted to the detriment of the monarchy. And there was not a mechanism there to kind of try to manage him. And, you know, 2 decades later, this is a result of questions of should the monarchy continue and these sorts of things. And so Andrew, in this situation, he continues to be a black mark on the royal family, and they have to figure out how to effectively manage the situation. And most importantly, how do you prevent it from happening in the future? Where is that? We don't know what checks and balances have been put into the monarchy since this whole thing with Andrew, and I think that's a really critical component. Is how do you prevent this from happening again?
So, Brittany, none of this is looking good for the palace either, unfortunately.
It's really not, Dan. And to me, it's still very concerning how they're approaching this. It does feel like they're circling the wagons and these sorts of things. And obviously, so much of Andrew's behavior, not that they knew everything, but the palace allowed some of this to occur for years. And I think it comes back to obviously the deep respect for the queen. It meant that some people didn't want to approach her about Andrew's behavior and these sorts of things. And so it allowed it to just kind of continue on for years and years and years, and to the point where it has now severely damaged the monarchy, undermined the public's trust in the institution. And Andrew, yes, he's a spare. He's not basically a high-ranking royal anymore in a lot of ways, but yet his behavior has caused such immense damage. And again, I think the monarchy itself needs to be transparent with the public in some ways their failings and how they will address those in the future. Because I think right now, if I was Joe Public, I'm like, okay, I see all these problems. What have you done to prevent this from happening again? Because these are always a possibility that somebody else may get entitled to certain behavior. Or you can look at Harry and Meghan. They will find probably most likely an Epstein character of their own. And if they're still attached to the institution, yes, they're outside it, but what do you do then? This is a problem that was decades in the making. It will take years to unravel, but the institution, I think, is still just not dealing with this as effectively as it should.
Royal commentators have suggested that Harry should focus on building a stronger independent career. Some believe he should expand his charitable work. Others think he should return to public speaking. A few argue he should pursue a bigger leadership role in business or philanthropy. Whatever the answer, critics insist that simply relying on royal connections may no longer be enough. Supporters argue that Meghan faces unfair criticism that few public figures could withstand. They point out that nearly every move she makes is analyzed, criticized, and dissected. But opponents say public scrutiny is the inevitable result of choosing a highly visible celebrity lifestyle. Either way, this latest controversy has reignited bigger questions about the Sussexes' future. Can their brand continue to evolve? Can they move beyond royal family conflict? Can they build lasting success independent of the monarchy? Or are they becoming trapped in a cycle of controversy that overshadows everything else? These questions matter because public perception matters, especially when your career depends on audience engagement. The reality is that Harry and Meghan remain two of the most talked about figures in the world. Few couples generate more headlines. Few couples attract more attention. But attention alone does not guarantee admiration. And it certainly does not guarantee success. That is why every new controversy matters. Each headline shapes public opinion. Each debate influences how people view the Sussex brand. And each criticism adds pressure to an already complicated situation. For Prince Harry, the challenge may be even greater. Unlike Meghan, he was born into a role. His identity was tied to the monarchy from the beginning. Stepping away from royal duties meant stepping away from a structure that had defined his entire life. Creating something new was never going to be easy. And perhaps that is why these conversations continue to resonate. People are not just debating candles. They are debating purpose, identity, success, failure. And what happens when two of the world's most famous people try to reinvent themselves under the relentless glare of the global spotlight? As for Meghan, the candle controversy will likely fade, like so many headlines before it. The bigger question is whether the wider concerns about the Sussex brand will fade too. Or whether this latest backlash is simply another sign that deeper challenges remain unresolved. One thing is certain. The public conversation is not ending anytime soon. And as Harry and Meghan continue charting their future, every move they make will be watched. Every decision will be analyzed. And every controversy will become another chapter in one of the most closely followed royal stories of the modern era. What do you think? Are Harry and Meghan being treated unfairly by critics? Or does the backlash reflect genuine concerns about their public image and business ventures? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more royal news, analysis, and breaking updates. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.